It's been over 112 years since Chevrolet first entered the automobile industry, and it has produced some wonderful cars. But over time, some of Chevy's old classics have been fading from people's memories. Cars that once used to turn heads now barely get recognized. We're diving into the world of 8 old Chevy cars that have slipped through the cracks of history. Forgotten by many, but still burning with charm and character. When we think of Chevy, the first things that come to our mind must be the big block engines, the Corvette and the Camaro. But there are some old-time classics that stole many people's hearts back in the day. Starting with the 1954 Chevy, a car worth remembering with its sleek and chrome-heavy design, this car was a hell of a machine. As this was released after the Korean War, the 1954 Chevy Bel Air was a huge sales success. Almost 250,000 Bel Air 4-door sedans left the factory, making it the brand's single best-selling body style. Now let's see what was under the hood. The 1954 Bel Air had 2 engine options. The standard engine was a 3.5-liter and straight-six engine that produced almost 115 brake horsepower and 258 pound-feet of torque. And the optional engine was a 3.9-liter straight-six engine that put out almost 150 brake horsepower. Among all the Chevys produced from 1949 to 1957, the 1954 model remains the most powerful and best-looking vehicle. This car is now a go-to for motorheads looking to modify it into a street rod or hot rod. Next up, we have the 1957 Chevrolet El Morocco. It's a perfect example of a custom car from the mid-20th century. Unlike other Chevy cars, which were known for their factory specifications, the El Morocco stood out due to its unique modifications. It's worth noting that the El Morocco wasn't designed by Chevrolet. Instead, Canadian businessman Reuben Allender created it. This was the first time Chevrolet allowed someone from outside the company to design a custom Chevy, and it turned out to be a big success. The El Morocco was available in 4.3-liter and 4.6-liter V8 engines. Plus, it's now a very rare car, highly sought after by collectors. Now, I don't know how many people could forget the 1958 Yeoman by Chevy. This was a very distinctive car that Chevy produced. Built in 1958 to be the brand's entry-level wagon, the Yeoman, which was offered as a 2- or 4-door station wagon, lasted all but 1 year in the market. It could also accommodate up to 6 passengers, which should have been enough to be appealing to customers. Built with practicality in mind, the Yeoman had a roomy interior and plenty of cargo space. It also came with rear-facing seats, which were a common feature in station wagons back then. The name Yeoman gives a feeling of dependability and toughness, which suits a family wagon perfectly. The Yeoman was available in 3 engine options, the most powerful being a 5.7-liter V8 that could produce 230 brake horsepower and 407 pound-feet of torque. Unfortunately for Chevy, this car was a huge flop, and Chevy decided to stop producing any more and dump the car barely a year after its introduction. The Yeoman was one of Chevy's many station wagons, which included some well-known models, showing how the brand focused on making practical, family-friendly cars in the mid-20th century. The Chevrolet Corvair, produced from 1960 to 1969, was a unique and innovative vehicle in Chevy's lineup. Known for its rear-engine layout and air-cooled engine, the Corvair had several notable models and updates throughout its production run. This 2-door was produced by Chevy after the recession of 1958. The idea was to build a small car that had an attractive look, good fuel economy, and performance that were up to the standards of European cars. After Ralph Nader's book, Unsafe at Any Speed, hit the shelves, the Corvair's reputation took a nosedive. The car's rear-engine design and its quirky suspension made it prone to dangerous oversteering and loss of control, especially in tricky driving conditions. These problems quickly became a big deal, leading GM to stop making the Corvair in 1969. The title for the rarest Corvette belongs to the 1971 Corvette ZR1. This mean piece of machinery was built for use on the racetrack. The 1971 Corvette ZR1 was powered by a 5.7-liter naturally aspired V8 engine that produced 255 horsepower and 488 pound-feet of torque. This track performance car was capable of doing 0 to 60 in just 6.4 seconds. ZR1's development was influenced by Corvette's racing heritage, and its design aimed to bring some of that race-ready performance to the street. The model's biggest claim to fame, and the reason it's on this list, is that only 8 Corvette models were equipped with the ZR1 package in that year. This made it a very, very rare car to get your hands on. Even though it was rare and only made for a short time, the 1971 ZR1 helped pave the way for future high-performance Corvettes. Car enthusiasts still remember and value it for its important place in Corvette's performance history. Now, this car is my personal favorite from the entire list. The 1973 to 76 Chevy Chevelle SS Laguna S3. This car was a perfect blend of performance and distinctive styling during the mid-1970s. First, let's take a look at the Chevelle SS. The 1973 Chevelle SS had a 7.4-liter V8 engine, producing around 270 horsepower. Due to stricter emissions regulations, the 1974-75 Chevelle SS came with smaller engines, such as a 5.7-liter V8. The Chevrolet SS had performance-oriented styling, like sportier trims and distinctive front grills. Now let's take a look at the Chevrolet Laguna S3. The Laguna S3 was known for its unique colonnade styling with a sleek fastback rear design. It was designed to look sporty and perform well, but with a greater focus on luxury and comfort compared to the SS. The 1973 to 75 Chevy Laguna S3 had 2 engine options. The standard option was the 5.7-liter V8, producing around 245 to 255 horsepower. The optional engine choice was a 7.4-liter V8, producing around 275 horsepower. The 1976 model had a 5.7-liter V8, producing about 155 to 175 horsepower due to stricter emissions regulations. Today, collectors and enthusiasts value these models for their part in Chevelle's history and their special place in car culture. This car is a notable model in automobile history due to its innovative engineering and limited production. The car we're talking about is none other than the 1975-76 Cosworth Vega. The Cosworth Vega was designed as a high-performance variant of the Chevrolet Vega. It featured a 2-liter inline-4 engine with dual overhead camshafts and a turbocharger, producing around 110 horsepower. It was the first Chevy with electronic fuel injection. Phew, that's a lot of power! The engine setup in the Cosworth Vega was so ahead of its time that it offered impressive performance in a compact package. The Cosworth Vega was distinguished by its sleek 2-door coupe design, which came in a striking black and gold color scheme. With only 2,000 of these ever produced, the Cosworth Vega remains a rare and sought-after collector's item today. With its cutting-edge technology and unique styling, the Cosworth Vega is a memorable part of automotive history. The 1985 Chevrolet Sprint Turbo is unforgettable if you've ever laid eyes on one. This was a very unique car that Chevrolet sold. The origins of this car trace back to Japan, where it was originally designed by Suzuki and sold under the name Suzuki Cultus. This mini hatchback car was rebadged and sold by Chevy after it entered into a deal with Suzuki. This gave birth to the 1985 Chevrolet Sprint Turbo. At a glance, we can say that the design was not like Chevy's usual cars. This was a 2-door hatchback-compatible vehicle that had a 1-liter inline turbocharged 3-cylinder engine that put out 70 brake horsepower and 145 pound-feet of torque. This mini beast could go from 0 to 60 in just 10.5 seconds. With its small design and a 1-liter engine, the Sprint was a fun car to drive. Although Chevrolet didn't sell a lot of these, this car was an interesting addition to Chevrolet's fleet. The Sprint Turbo has recently gained a lot of attention from gearheads who want to make this car a pocket rocket. So there you have it, 8 old Chevy cars that have faded from the spotlight but still have their own special charm. These forgotten pieces may not be in the spotlight anymore, but they played an important role in Chevy's long history. Are there any cars that you would like to add to this list? Let us know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more amazing content.